Alright guys, it's RC Knockout and I am back out again. If you watched the last video, I upgraded the chassis on this Traxxas Slash 2-wheel drive XL5 model. So I put the low center of gravity chassis on. So this right here is a Traxxas upgrade part. I don't know if you can see on there, it actually has Traxxas, has raised lettering that says Traxxas on it. It's nice blue color. You can get some other colors. I think it came in black and gray, but I couldn't find any as cheap as this. So the blue option was the cheapest. This cost me roughly $39.99. I did have to switch everything over. You have to change, the servo has to lay down. It goes from being in an upright position to laying down. But we brought it out today to basically test it out and see how much of a difference that makes for the handling with that low center of gravity chassis. Now, I did set up some cones. Kind of has a slalom course, so the plan is to hit it through this and see how level the body stays. It definitely brought the weight down significantly. I am going to be running on a 2S LiPo, and I did switch back to the 23 tooth pinion, which is the high-speed gearing. I was at the 31 tooth. That was kind of a fail. I wouldn't really say it was a fail. It was kind of a learning experience because it kind of worked, but it kind of didn't. So it kept on hitting some sort of limp mode. And I actually had a viewer telling me that I should have turned the low voltage protection off and ran it with the LiPo because he thought it had to do with the low voltage protection kicking in because it was spiking the amount of power it was drawing, which kind of makes sense, but I took it off anyhow because the amount of speed that I was gaining from running that pinion, I was only getting up to like 35 miles per hour, and most time I was only getting 33, 32 miles per hour. So I was getting 30 miles per hour with the 23 tooth. So it just did not make sense in my mind to keep the higher gearing on to only gain what, 3 to 5 miles per hour. So this is going to have more bashability running this pinion. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Alright guys, so this is what the inside of the new chassis looks like. As you can see, it lays down way lower. I mean, the weight used to be like way up here. It used to be like an inch and a half higher. The weight just sits so much lower now. I anticipate this is going to handle quite a bit better. The hope is that it's going to be able to keep that weight in between the wheels and low, so it's not going to be shifting the weight left and right like this. Because the issue I was having was then the inner wheel, whenever you turn or go around a curve, the inner wheel, it would dump all that power to it because this is an open differential. So there'd be no weight on that tire, and it would then dump all the power to that tire. So I'm hoping that this keeps the body a little bit more flat and keeps things just a little bit more planted. So hopefully we'll get more of that power to the ground. Like I said, I set up this little slalom course. As you guys can see, it seems very planted. I mean, if you guys can see how well it's going around the cone, it's doing pretty darn good. As you guys can see, when I'm turning, it's still dumping that power to the inner wheel, but the thing is not tipping. So I have yet to have the thing tip. I couldn't really carry a ton of speed through them, but it did pretty decent. Maybe I should just have a few out and then just do some really quick change in directions. I could probably do that. We're upright. I mean, it's so much better than it was, guys. It would never be able to, it can turn almost on a dime. Not quite on a dime, but as you guys can see, it still wants to bring that front tire, that rear inner tire up, but it's so much more planted than it was. Look at how I'm just going around this. Like, you can push the limits and you will tip it like that, or that. Ooh, almost tipped it again. Okay, at higher speeds, it still will tip on you. So basically, off the throttle, it doesn't really want to tip. On the throttle, it kind of does. So, well, that was a bad example right there, because I was kind of off the throttle. There's off the throttle. It still wants to lift that rear wheel, so we're still having that issue. Interesting. It's safe to say, guys, it's way better than it was. But there obviously still is a tipping issue. This, with the low center of gravity, still is not as planted, it seems like, as a four-wheel drive. But you know what? I don't normally do maneuvers like that with my four-wheel drive. And it might just because there's not much weight. So with there not being much weight over the front, what's happening when you're going into turns is this weight right here, it wants to push this way. So it wants to go like this. It wants to go like this and tip over itself, which makes sense. Another launch. Bring it back. Whoa! Flipped it. I have to realize, as well as you guys need to realize, that a lot of that weight is where the motor and the gearbox is, which is back here. So a lot of that weight's back here. So whenever you want to go to a stop, there's not much weight. There's nothing also stopping these front tires. So any single time you go to brake, this weight still wants to move forward. So it still wants to move forward even though that weight is low. So this, I don't think, no matter what you do, this is not going to perform as well as, let's say, my four-wheel drive Traxxas Slash, just because that's more balanced with the weight and everything. But I have to say, it handles so much better than it did, especially at slow speeds. You can still hear that open diff kind of unloading that power a bit, but whoa, I knocked it. Oh no, my tripod. Yeah, it can control a lot better if you're off the throttle. So if you go and steer off the throttle rather than on the throttle, if you steer on the throttle, the thing much more likely wants to lift. But guys, for $39.99, I have to say, I'd say it's definitely worth it. Just in the small amount of testing I've done, I'd say it's definitely worth it. But I do think it's getting more of that power to the ground, even around curves. If you like this video, go ahead, hit the thumbs up button. Also subscribe to the channel. See you guys in another video. Later.